Good evening, everybody.
Hi, everyone. We have no mess-ups tonight. Just smooth sailing.
I never mess up the intro, ever. Thank God for editing.
I know, right? Can you imagine if we didn't edit? People would think that we were even bigger morons than we actually are.
Yeah, they'd probably think we were pretty low IQ.
They probably already do.
So apparently we already drank the Walrus. I went and bought 4. Dude, this shit is good.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's really good. I went with it's a limited hazy series from Sierra Nevada. It's called Cool Little Thing IPA, and it's a cryo fresh hazy IPA. I guess they brewed it in a cryo chamber.
Weren't you saying before the podcast it was like cannabis and mushroom infused or something?
Don't believe I was. Don't believe
I saw a commercial for that like recently. I'm like, they do that?
Yeah, they have.
It's not even alcohol. It's just cannabis and mushrooms in a drink.
Oh, I didn't know so not in Utah, of course, but they do have they have cannabis infused alcohol. Like it's a thing. Like they'll do it's like root beer float cannabis alcoholic drinks. For those of you who don't know, we're in Utah and we get none of that stuff. We barely get 5% alcohol here. And we have to go to special liquor stores to get liquor.
Yeah, it's very true. It's because we're all children here. Well, anyways, tonight we have 2 topics we're going to cover. I'm going to be covering the Bear Lake Monster. Pretty exciting stuff there. Britton, what are you covering?
So I found a lake-themed story online. It's a scary story. So yeah, we're gonna jump into the lake tonight.
Okay, all right. We're diving deep into the murky waters of the abyss. Bear Lake is in Utah, and we're just looking at some creepy things from Utah that we could cover, and I saw that, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard of it, so I'll cover it. I remember I've only been to Bear Lake a couple of times in my life, maybe 3 or 4, but it's a cold lake, man. It's cold up there. It's pretty big too.
Yeah, I've been a couple.
I remember I went swimming there. I think I went canoeing. You know, the whole scout thing. Camped out there. When I heard the Bear Lake Monster when I was a kid, I'm like, yeah, that's made up. But apparently there's a little bit of lore behind it that I wasn't aware of. So,
yeah. Luckily, I didn't know of the Bear Lake Monster when I went the first time because I wouldn't have gone into the fucking lake. So, yeah.
You're just sitting there swimming. Like this fin hits your leg and it breaks your femur. You're like, oh my God.
It's like, that was a big bass. No, but like, I don't know. I think I've said it several times. I have thalassophobia. I don't like very big, deep expanses of water. Like lakes are fine. I love swimming in the lake, but still sometimes I'm like, God, I don't know what the hell's below me.
Yeah, true.
And now that we know that, the aliens don't come from fucking space, they come from the oceans.
I bet the aliens are down there probing people.
They're probing people below the ocean. That makes sense.
It's like
totally.
It's a weird waterboarding, man. You don't want to be a part of it. All right, let's jump in. So the Bear Lake Monster. Nestled in the heart of the Rocky Mountains, Bear Lake is a place of breathtaking beauty. But beneath its turquoise water lies a mystery that's been whispered about for generations. From Native American legends to 19th century newspapers and even modern-day sightings, the Bear Lake Monster is one of America's most enduring cryptid mysteries. In this episode, we'll explore the history of Bear Lake, dive deeper into the origins of the monster's legends, recount chilling eyewitness encounters, and examine the theories, both scientific and fantastical, that attempt to explain this creature. By the end, you might find yourself wondering, could there really be something lurking in the depths of Bear Lake? To understand the story of the Bear Lake Monster, we first need to appreciate the setting. Bear Lake straddles the Utah-Idaho border.
It's like, just straddles, huh?
It just really straddles, yes. A natural wonder spanning approximately 20 miles in length and 8 miles in width. Its stunning turquoise water gives it the nickname Caribbean of the Rockies, thanks to limestone particles that refract light in the water. The lake's depth, over 2,000 feet in some places, and its cold, clear water make it a hub for fishing, boating, and swimming. But beneath the beauty lies a shadowy mystery. Bear Lake has long been a source of intrigue, not just for its ecological uniqueness, but for what might lurk in the depths. For centuries, the lake had been home to tales of a massive aquatic creature. While the modern legend gained traction in the 19th century, whispers of the Bear Lake monster began long before settlers arrived. Long before pioneers settled in the Bear Lake area, the Shoshone people lived along its shores. For the Shoshone, the lake was more than a source of sustenance. It was a spiritual place, rich with stories passed down through generations. Among these stories was the tale of a great water serpent. According to the Shoshone oral traditions, this creature was more than a mere animal. It was a water spirit, a guardian of the lake. The serpent-like being was described as long and powerful, with a smooth, glistening body that would shimmer under the moonlight. Its head was said to resemble a wolf or a cow, and it could move with terrifying speed,
What the fuck?
both in the water and on the land. Yeah, that's the lore, man. Could you imagine that? Like it has a head of a cow or a wolf?
I knew the serpent thing, but I didn't realize it had a wolf head or a cow head.
I would shit my pants if that was coming at me, man.
Yeah, you think? You think?
The Shoshone warned that the creature could be dangerous. It was said to rise from the water and hunt along the shoreline, snatching deer, livestock, and even unsuspecting humans who ventured too close. The Shoshone respected the creature as part of the lake's natural order, a reminder of the mysteries that nature holds. Were these stories rooted in encounters with real creatures, or were they cautionary tales created to teach respect for the dangers of the wild? Whatever the case, they laid the foundation for the legend that could captivate settlers and beyond. So let's move to 1868. The Bear Lake monster might have remained a local legend, known only to the Shoshone and early settlers, if not for a pivotal event in 1868. That year, Joseph C. Rich, a prominent Mormon settler and journalist, published an article in the Deseret News in Salt Lake City. In his article, Rich claimed that several settlers in the Bear Lake area had seen a massive creature in the water. Witnesses described the creature as being around 20 to 50 feet long, with a serpentine body, slimy scales, and a head resembling an alligator. According to the report, the monster could move incredibly fast, sometimes skimming the surface of the water, leaving massive ripples in its wake. The most chilling detail? Some witnesses claimed the creature had been seen coming ashore to snatch livestock before retreating back into the lake. The story caused a sensation. It wasn't just a local curiosity anymore. It was a full-blown regional phenomenon. Years later, Rich admitted that he had embellished the story, adding dramatic flair to entertain readers and increase circulation. But even if Rich exaggerated the details, his article tapped into something that resonated with locals, and the legend took it a life of its own. So now let's jump into some eyewitness tales, huh? You wanna hear some true stories? I saw it. It had a head of alligator, a cow, and a wolf.
And I had little baby feet.
And it nipped me.
Pulled me under the water. Couldn't breathe.
Even after Rich's article, sightings of the Bear Lake monster continued. In fact, accounts of the creature spanned generations, with some chilling stories standing out as particularly compelling. The first one we'll talk about is the Thomas and Young family's 1880. One of the earliest and most credible accounts came from two respected families in the 1880s, the Thomases and the Youngs. While out boating on Bear Lake, they reportedly saw a massive creature rise from the water. Its snake-like body glistened in the sunlight, and its head was described as alligator-like. Startled, the families attempted to shoot the creature, but it quickly submerged, leaving only turbulent waves behind. Their stories spread, adding weight to the growing legend. These families were well known in the community, making their accounts hard to dismiss as mere flights of fancy. So, some two really rich families say, hey, we saw this alligator monster in the lake. Would you believe them? Written?
No, because, well, it depends. Because if they're like, hey, we saw this thing, and then they're slipping me like tens of thousands of dollars, like, you believe us, right? I saw this thing, right? I might be compelled to believe them if they're slipping me some bills, man.
Have some bills, believe me. The second one is The Fisherman's Tale in the 1940s. A local fisherman in the 1940s recounted a spine-tingling encounter with the monster. While fishing in the deeper part of the lake, he noticed an unusual disturbance in the water. At first, he thought it was a large fish, but as the dark shape approached his boat, he realized it was something far larger. The creature reportedly circled his boat several times, causing the water to churn violently. The fisherman described its presence as eerie and menacing. Though he never got a clear view of its head or body, he was so shaken by the experience that he avoided fishing in the lake's deeper areas for years. Now we'll talk about campfire stories and modern sightings. In the 1950s and 1960s, the Bear Lake Monster became a popular topic for campfire stories, especially among summer campers and vacationers. Many claimed to have seen strange ripples or dark shapes in the water at dusk, though these stories were often dismissed as overactive imaginations. More recently, in 2002, a group of tourists reported seeing a large, dark object moving just beneath the surface of the lake. They described it as being at least 30 feet long, with humps breaking the waves. While skeptics dismissed the sighting as a floating log or an optical illusion, the witnesses were adamant that they had seen something alive. Now, let's jump into theories and explanations. What could the Bear Lake Monster actually be? Let's explore some of the leading theories ranging from the scientific to the fantastical. The first one is a prehistoric relic. Some cryptozoologists have speculated that the Bear Lake Monster might be a surviving prehistoric creature, such as the plesiosaur or the ichthyosaur.
The dinosaur.
These marine... Yeah, it's dinosaurs. That's what they are. Trust me, bro.
It's a fucking dinosaur. Trust me. Here's $10,000. I saw it.
Here's $10,000. Just stop asking questions.
Just tell me. You believe me, right?
Buy my book. These marine reptiles lived millions of years ago and bore some resemblance to the descriptions of the Bear Lake Monster. However, this theory has its problems. For one, Bear Lake is relatively young in geological terms. It formed about 250,000 years ago, the Pliocene epoch. This makes it unlikely that prehistoric creatures could have survived there. Still, the idea of a living fossil lurking in the depths is tantalizing. Another theory is misidentified animals. Another plausible explanation is that the sightings are cases of misidentification. Large fish, such as the sturgeon, are known to grow to impressive sizes and have a prehistoric appearance that could be mistaken for a lake monster. Sturgeon can reach lengths of about 12 feet, and their armored bodies can give them a monstrous look. Could you imagine seeing a 12-foot fish out there? Jesus. Otters, which are native to the area, could also account for some of the sightings. When swimming in a line, a group of otters can create an illusion of a long, serpentine creature with multiple humps. The next theory is natural phenomena. Natural phenomena, such as floating logs or unusual wave patterns, might explain some of the reported sightings. The play of light on Bear Lake's surface combined with its unique watercolor could also create optical illusions. Add a dash of imagination, and you've got the markings of a monster sighting. The last theory is a folkloric creature. Finally, some researchers believe the Bear Lake Monster is more of a cultural phenomenon than a biological one. Lake monster legends are surprisingly common, appearing in cultures all over the world, from Scotland's Loch Ness Monster to Canada's Ogopogo. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. These stories often symbolize humanity's fascination with the unknown and our deep connection to water as a life source. Today, the Bear Lake Monster is more than just a local legend. It's a cultural icon. The creature has inspired festivals, art, and even businesses in the Bear Lake area. There's a Bear Lake Monster boat rental service where visitors can venture out onto the lake to search for the elusive cryptid. Local festivals celebrate the monster with games, storytelling, and themed merchandise. The creature's images have appeared on everything from t-shirts to postcards, cementing its place as a beloved mascot for the region. For locals, the Bear Lake Monster is more than just a tourist attraction, it's a piece of history, a symbol of the lake's mystery and a reminder of the stories that connect us to the land and water. Now the question is, why are so many people fascinated by these stories with the Bear Lake Monster? Perhaps it's because these tales tap into something primal, a mix of fear, wonder, and curiosity. Monsters remind us of the world is vast and mysterious, full of secrets waiting to be uncovered. The Bear Lake Monster, like other cryptids, blurs the line between myth and reality. Whether it's a product of imagination, misidentification, or something real, it continues to inspire curiosity and awe. So, is the Bear Lake Monster real, Britain? As you asked? I think it's a question that might never really have a definitive answer, but perhaps the truth isn't the point. The Bear Lake Monster reminds us of the power of storytelling, the alluring of the unknown, and the magic of a good mystery. If you are ever near Bear Lake, take a moment to gaze out on the water. Whether or not you see a monster, you'll feel the weight of its legend, a legend that has endured the generations.
I think there's a series of tunnels underneath that connects a lot of
to
the
Pyramid Lake.
Yeah, and that's
It's just one cryptid. It's connected to all the lakes.
There's one lake cryptid, and he just goes from lake
Loch
to lake
Ness.
to lake. All the way in Scotland, back to Utah. Why the fuck not, right? Going to lake, and someone sees it, it's like, fuck, I guess I got to disappear to another lake for a while now.
All right, Britton, let's kick it off to you, and let's hear that scary tale of the scary lake. Yeah, something.
I guess. So this story is posted by Solar Dr. XPP1. And the title of this is My Grandmother Told Me a Scary Bedtime Story, but years later I found out the story she told me was horrifyingly true.
The old grandma long troll.
Yep. So buckle up, people. We're going to hear a true bedtime story. I watched from a distance while my grandmother and grandpa fished on their lake in the backyard, but one thing confused me. While Grandpa cast his line and watched his rod, waiting for the anticipating tug of a fish, Grandma's gaze remained fixed across the lake. Her head tilted intently towards the dark fringe of woods. I never saw her look at the bobbing lures. She didn't even seem interested in fishing at all. I thought that maybe she just simply enjoyed looking at the trees, but a nagging feeling persisted. There was more to her gaze than a simple love for nature.
She's like sweating, breathing hard.
It's all right, honey. It's just fish. No need to stress.
Just how Grandma is. Ignore her.
Yeah, she's just doing the deep breathing she always does when she gets anxious. Just don't look her in the eye, son. It was summer break, and I decided to spend it at my grandparents' house in Knoxville, Tennessee. They lived in a 2-story house, recently built in 2018. It connected directly to the lake, with a dock jutting out to the far right side where my grandpa kept his bass boat. My grandparents were a sweet and quiet couple. They kept to themselves most of the time, living a peaceful life in their little corner of the world. Every summer, though, my visits became a tradition. Grandma's invitation was always an automatic yes, her warm smile and gentle voice a beacon calling me back. There were countless things to love about my grandma, her kindness and generosity at the top of the list. If I wanted something, it was usually an automatic yes from her too. But one of the things I truly cherished most was her stories. Unlike Grandpa, who mostly stuck to tales of his time in the military, exciting stories filled with bravery and adventure, of course, Grandma was a bottomless well of stories. Whether it was a funny story from her childhood, a heartwarming story about a kid neighbor, or a fantastical bedtime story that transported me to magical lands, Grandma always had one on hand. She was one of those special grandmas who could weave a story from thin air, her words painting vivid pictures in my mind. Grandpa, on the other hand, was a man of few words. A quiet strength emanated from him, and the stories he did tell were always about his service. He'd talk about the places he'd been, the challenges he'd faced, and the lessons that he'd learned. While not as fantastical as Grandma's stories, they held a different kind of magic, a testament to his resilience and the experiences that shaped him. One of the things I always admire about Grandpa was his outdoor skills. He'd tell me most of his knowledge came from his military training, jokingly saying they prepared him for anything. He was a true outdoorsman, the kind of person I'd trust implicitly if we were ever lost in the wilderness. He knew everything about fishing, the best spots in the lake, the best techniques to catch different types of fish. Some of my favorite memories were spent on his boat, cutting through the cool morning water, the sun rising over the horizon, and the gentle hum of the motor a comforting lullaby. Every night, Grandma dipped into her seemingly endless well of stories. I never quite understood how she did it. Her mind was like a sprawling library, shelves overflowing with stories to tell. And this guy is just like, he's explained this like 900 times.
She just tells stories. She just doesn't stop. She just keeps telling stories.
She just doesn't shut up. She just doesn't shut up. It's always a story. Shut up, Grandma.
I told her to stop, and she just told a story about someone telling her to stop doing something.
One night, she'd tell me a story of brave knights seeking vengeance, their swords gleaming in the sun. Another night, she'd tell me a story of a land shimmering with magic spells and cursed lands. Then there were the scary stories. Now, Grandma usually avoided them. She knew how they affected me, but the thing about those stories was the detail. Oh man, the detail. They were so vivid, so real, it felt like I was peeking through a crack into another world. A world where the monsters and creatures she described lurked. A world so terrifying that I felt like falling through the crack would kill me. Every night was the same routine. Nestled under a patchwork quilt in the guest room, I'd wait with bated breath. The soft click of the doorknob was my cue. Grandma, her face etched with a lifetime of stories, would enter, a gentle smile gracing her lips. She'd pull up the rocking chair, its rhythmic creak adding to the lullaby effect. Then, in a warm voice, she'd begin telling me a story. One night, though, tucked under the quilt, I waited for Grandma's nightly visit. The soft click of the doorknob announced her arrival. "Ready for another story?" she asked, her voice a warm rumble. I nodded eagerly. Nights at Grandma's were journeys to magical lands. Oh my God, dude, we get it. Each story more thrilling than the last. But tonight I craved a different kind of story, a different kind of excitement. "Can you tell me a scary story tonight, Grandma?" I blurted out. A flicker of surprise crossed her face, followed by a thoughtful pause. Unlike her usual repertoire of action-packed adventures, her stories I've always steered clear of scary notes. She sat beside me on the quilt, her usual mischievous eyes replaced by a thoughtful gaze. Her eyes flickered toward the window for a moment before returning to me. Then, with a gentle smile, she began. "Those woods, outside your window," she started, her voice a warm rumble. I instinctively glanced towards the window, the familiar silhouette of the trees outlined across the lake. "There's something in those woods," she continued, her voice dropping to a hushed whisper. A shiver danced down my spine, though the room remained pleasantly warm. Those simple words made me so uncomfortable that I was tempted to just tell Grandma to stop. But the truth was, I was already hooked. Grandma did tell me scary stories on rare occasions, but they were always fictional, completely disconnected from the real world. She continued, "Every 7 years, it comes out of those woods. It emerges, a creature that's been on this earth for thousands of years. It crawls on all fours. It hunts, a silent predator searching for its prey." Man, that sounds kind of familiar. It's like a movie called Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah, she stole Jeepers Creepers.
Literally, like it was literally every 7 years, a creature's been on this earth for thousands of years. It's like, dude, that's Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah, maybe Jeepers Creepers stole it from him on Reddit.
Oh, that'd be interesting. I doubt it.
Versus the other way around.
Yeah, let's not jump to assumptions here. I began to tense up a little. The room remained quiet, but the air felt heavy. "Its body is like a man, but twisted and contorted," she murmured, "and its limbs elongated, reaching out at odd angles. Its skin as black as coal, making it difficult to spot during the night." I swallowed hard, my eyes instinctively drawn back to the window. The trees, which were once comforting, now seemed to writhe with unseen shadows. "But the worst part," she continued, her voice barely a tremor, "is its eyes. Multiple eyes scattered across its head like a spider. They pierce the darkness, searching for unsuspecting victims." She continued, her voice a hushed whisper, sending shivers down my spine. "Sometimes, if it has trouble finding its prey, it ventures closer to houses, searching for unlocked windows." My breath caught in my throat. The image of eyes peering through the glass sent a jolt of terror through me. "If it finds an opening," she whispered, "it will crawl inside and snatch the closest person to it, dragging them back to the woods." I squeezed my eyes shut, the warmth of the quilt a poor barrier against the sudden chill. Man, this grandma's fucked up, man.
Yes.
So we're reading about the last time this kid ever went to his grandma's house is what we're actually reading.
Yeah, probably.
He's like, nope, fuck you, grandma. I'm not coming over anymore.
I'm out of it. I was thinking maybe it grabbed his grandma.
I don't know.
Never mind. Go ahead.
We'll see. It keeps its victims alive for 7 long years, she whispered, feeding off of them slowly until the hunger returns and it's time to hunt once more. My grip tightened on the blanket and my knuckles were white. A cold sweat was dripping down my skin. But don't you worry, she said, her voice gentling. As long as we keep the windows locked, we're going to be safe. And don't forget to do the same at your mom's house. She rose from the bed, her smile straightened at the edges. A smile meant to reassure, but one that couldn't hide the sliver of unease in her eyes. Her movements seemed slow and deliberate as she walked towards the window. My eyes followed her, with my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. She stared out the window for a moment, as if checking to make sure the thing wasn't around, and then she checked to make sure that the window was locked. Just as she was about to turn away, I blurted out, unable to contain the question that had lodged itself in my throat. Grandma, have you ever seen it? She paused for a few moments, a flicker of something unreadable crossing her face before a reassuring smile crossed her lips. She didn't answer me. She simply leaned down and kissed my forehead, a gesture filled with a strange intensity. Good night, darling, she whispered. Then, with a gentle click, she shut my door behind her. I was awake for most of that night, staring at the darkened window pane. The familiar silhouette of the woods outside now held a new kind of terror. I kept wondering if I would see that face my grandma described, a face with multiple eyes staring back at me. Eventually, exhausted from fear and lack of sleep, my eyelids drifted shut, and I finally drifted off. While I slept, I dreamt of its form, shifting and writhing in the darkness. I ran, my legs pumping, but it was like I was running on ice. Panic seized me as the figure lunged, its long arms wrapping around my legs. It dragged me, like a rag doll, through the grass, the stench of damp grass filling my nostrils. The woods grew bigger as the thing dragged me there, its jagged edges threatening to devour me whole. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Just as the branches of the trees were about to engulf me, I jolted awake, gasping for breath. Light streamed through the window, painting familiar shapes on the ceiling. The room held a peaceful stillness. It took several deep breaths to slow the pounding of my heart. Relief washed over me, chasing away the lingering dread. Since that night, despite Grandma's steady stream of new stories, the creature in the woods has remained a constant shadow in the corner of my mind. Thankfully, the nightmares, those terrifying chases through endless woods, didn't last. Slowly, the story faded from memory. A few years later, a different kind of darkness descended upon our family. Cancer. A cruel, selfish thief stole my grandmother's health bit by bit. She fought for months, but in the end, the disease won. It left a hole in our lives, especially for Grandpa. Now he lives alone, the silence of the house heavy with her absence. Talking about her seems to bring a fresh wave of pain, etched deep into the lines of his face. Sometimes he murmurs about just wanting for his turn to join her. It's a heartbreaking sight, really. A man transformed into a solitary figure, simply waiting to die. That year was a blur of grief, the dark tunnel we all had to navigate. But with the love and support of family and friends, we eventually managed to pull through. With each passing year, the grief lessened, but Grandma's memory remained. Then, after another few years during my senior year in high school, something happened. I walked into the house after a long day. The familiar scent of an empty house greeted me. Mom had already left for work, and I pulled my backpack onto my bed, pulled out my books, and settled in for an evening of homework, studying, and the occasional break to watch TV. I shut off the TV, changed into my pajamas, and crawled into bed. Sleep, however, remained elusive. My mind was a tangled mess, tossing and turning over the events of the day. Finally, I peeked at the clock on my desk, its green glow reading almost 3 a.m. Just then, a sound shattered the silence. A sharp tap that echoed throughout the room. My eyes flew open, snapping towards the window. A wave of ice washed over me, freezing my blood solid. Memories of Grandma's story flooded back into my mind. The creature, the woods. There, pressed against the glass, was a form that blocked most of the moonlight from filtering in. If not for the sliver of moonlight peeking in around what it was blocking it, I wouldn't have been able to see it at all. its human-shaped body pressed against the window, and across its head I could have sworn I saw movement, a flicker, like multiple tiny insects scurrying across its flesh. Then a horrifying realization dawned on me. They weren't insects, they were eyelids flickering open and shut, scanning my room with frantic urgency. My breath hitched. Was this a dream? Just then a shadowy limb, long and impossibly thin, sneaked out towards the base of my window. Had I locked the window? The sickening sound of the window as the glass began to slide up hit my ears. Terror choked and screamed in my throat. There are woods behind my mom's house, too, and a sickening realization dawned on me. This wasn't just a story. It was real, and it was here. Adrenaline surged through me, and my fight-or-flight responses kicked in. I threw myself out of bed in a desperate scramble. My feet pounded the floor as I bolted towards the door, flinging it open, but my escape was cut short. The door slammed shut in my face, the force of it throwing me backward. A strangled cry escaped my lips as a wave of terror washed over me. My body locked up, and every muscle seized in a silent scream. Somehow, it was now in my room. That fast. It was no longer at the window. It was now above me, above my door. One of its grotesquely long limbs, tipped with a hand like a spider's claw, pressed firmly against the door, pinning me inside. Another seemed contorted at an unnatural angle, its fingers splayed against the wall in a grotesque parody of a grip. The head, if you could call it that, twisted on its neck in a way that defied human anatomy, almost spinning completely around. A chorus of eyes locked onto me. Trapped and alone, I stumbled backwards, my mind scrambling for any flicker of hope. The second floor was an escape route, but a leap out the window would likely result in injury, leaving me in a vulnerable position. Besides, that's where it probably wanted me. Right next to the door stood my wooden baseball bat, and in a desperate lunge I grabbed at it, the wood rough against my grip. With a yell, I swung the bat with all my strength, connecting with a sickening thud. Splinters of wood rained down as the impact sent a tremor throughout the room. The creature recoiled slightly, its multiple eyes flickering in what might have been surprise, but the silence that followed was the most unsettling part. No roar of pain, no growl. This thing moved with an unnatural quiet. Even as it moved, it made no noise at all. It descended to the floor, its grotesque form dwarfing the space in my room, and as it loomed closer, lowering its body in a predatory crouch, I swung the mangled bat widely. The bat connected, and with a bone-crunching impact, sending more shards of wood flying through the air. The creature recoiled, its grotesque form momentarily faltering. Seizing my chance, I bolted past the thing, flung open the bedroom door, and slammed it shut behind me with a resounding bang. This story did not go as I was thinking it would go.
Yeah, it's definitely a true story.
Oh yeah, this thing is real, man. It's connected by a series of tunnels underneath all the woods. Yep. Adrenaline pumping, I raced down the stairs, each step echoing in the sudden silence. Reaching the living room, I fumbled for the light switch, illuminating the space with a warm glow. Panting, I gripped the broken bat like a lifeline, its splintered end pointing towards the top of the stairs, towards the thing in my room. Suddenly, a new sound pierced the tense silence, the creak of the front door opening. A silhouette emerged from the doorway, the dim porch light casting long shadows across her face. "There you are," my mom's voice, laced with exhaustion. "What the hell are you—" The sentence died on her lips, completely cut short. Her eyes widened, but neither she nor I had time to react. In a sharp and quick moment, a shadowy, distorted limb, tipped with the spidery claw, shot out, wrapping around my mother's waist. It snagged her, sinking its talons deep into her flesh, the sickening terror echoing in the silence. A strangled noise bubbled in her throat, cut short before it could form a scream. But then I heard her scream fully formed as the thing dragged her away, back towards the woods. I ran with all my effort, but the thing was too fast. All I could do was keep running, watching as my mom screamed with her arms folded around the creature's arm in a desperate attempt to escape. It had her, though, exactly where it wanted her, out in the open. I fell face first into the grass, a sob wrenching its way out of my chest. Warm tears streamed down my face, blurring my vision as I watched in horror. Mom's screams turned into blood-curdling shrieks, fading into a horrifying silence as they disappeared into the indistinguishable maw of the woods. The police came, But what could they do? What could I tell them? I told them exactly what I saw, and they looked at me like I was crazy. But what else could I say? For hours, I sat in a sterile interrogation room, the harsh overhead light blurring my vision. They questioned me over and over, dissecting my story, searching for inconsistencies. But all I could do was repeat the horrifying scene, my voice cracking with each retelling. There was no evidence to tie me to my mom's disappearance, nothing but my frantic pleas and the raw terror etched into my face. Finally, they seemed to reach a reluctant roadblock. With a sigh and a dismissive glance, they released me. Now a search party combs the backyard, venturing into the dense woods behind our home. Bloodhounds sniff the damp earth, their mournful howls echoing throughout the trees. In my room, the silence pressing down on me like a physical weight as the harsh light of dawn breaks. I stare at the window. A large handprint, a grotesque splayed imprint of multiple fingers, clings to the outside of my glass. A cold realization settles over me. Now I know that at least one of my grandma's stories is real. So what do you think?
Definitely a real story from him and his grandma.
Yeah.
2 true stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's all these creatures are just, again, connected through a series of tunnels. And
they all came from Pyramid Lake.
Yeah, which I think was built by the aliens. So
yeah.
And then we've got Agartha. You know, I'm sure a lot of these live in Agartha with Hitler and T-Rexes. And
damn it, Hitler. Keep your T-Rex.
All right. Well, I don't know about you guys, but those stories were both very compelling. I think that we have a lot of crazy cryptid creatures all over our planet. So yeah, if you've got a scary story of seeing the Bear Lake Monster or something similar to the guy's black creature scuttling out of the woods, let us know in the comments. But as always, a huge shout out to our 8 paid supporters of the show: Soylent Cleat, Modelo Time, Cleat Feet, Curtis and Lara, Mothman, Conklin Family, Lara and Lou. Your support of the show is tremendously helpful. Thank you very much. And if you would like to become a paid supporter of the show yourself, simply click the link below. There are a few tiers to choose from. And if you want to do a one-time donation to the beer fund, there is also a link for that.
If you're listening to us on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe, as it really helps us get us out there. And as always, thank you for entering the abyss.
Until next time.